Hi everybody, this is AJ speaking. This video is a quick update on Tesla's China sales trends. I will be posting this video on YouTube after a significant time delay. So the numbers for the latest week came in at 10,300 vehicle sales. You can see here on the right hand side for the third quarter each week. We are now at week 8 and there are 5 full weeks remaining. You can see, first of all, there was a drop-off compared to last week when Tesla reported 14,000 vehicles. And that is a quite significant, let's call it intra-quarter sequential weekly drop-off. And to get more color around this, it's good to look at the third quarter of last year. We did not see such a drop-off during that quarter, and that was a very strong quarter. And then in the subsequent very strong quarter, in the fourth quarter of 2024, we also did not see that late in the quarter such a drop-off. Since it's not only very large in unit terms, a sequential change of 3,700 units, so from 14,000 to 10,300 is 3,700, but also in percentage terms, it's quite significant. Here in Q4 2024, there was also a sequential decrease. That was quite significant, but was on a much higher level. Therefore, the percentage change was less. However, when you look at the bottom chart, you see how the first 8 weeks for the last 6 quarters compare to the current first 8 weeks. So after the first 8 weeks, we are at 86,500 units in this quarter, and this significantly exceeds the second quarter and also significantly exceeds the first quarter. However, we are about 12,000 units below the third quarter of last year. But that was a very strong quarter. So that was a very high bar to meet. So with that information, we can do a bit of forecasting. So you see here on the right-hand side, 86,500. This is what we have this far in the quarter. And we compare it with the third quarter of last year. That was at 98,400. That means that the current Q3 is at 88% of the last year Q3. Next, what we can do is we take the remaining weeks of the third quarter of last year, the total sum, and scale them down by 88%. That basically implies that we assume the same year-on-year underperformance as we witnessed this quarter thus far, 88%, to derive a total for the remaining weeks of the quarter. If we do this, we get to 86,000 units, and that would imply a total for Q3 of 172,000 units. My estimate at the beginning of the quarter was for 139,000 vehicles. So if that extrapolation was correct, Tesla would come in China 33,000 units above my beginning of quarter estimate, but the implied weekly average sales rate from here on out would be 17,100 vehicles. To meet my beginning of quarter estimate of 139,000 vehicles, we would only require 10,500 vehicle deliveries on average from here on out. So now let's think about it. What is closer to the truth? 17,000 or 10,500? For that, let's look at the trends that are observable towards the end of the quarter. And we can see there is a clear upward trend in most quarters. Fourth quarter is more flattish from the current perspective. So when we look at the other quarters, so fourth quarter, strong fourth quarter was kind of flattish. Third quarter was also kind of flat from the current week's perspective, with a slight increase here, as you can see, and then of course a very, very strong final week of the quarter. And then there was something similar in the second quarter of 2024. But let's look at this more closely. So the trend that we saw in the first quarter was significantly driven by, first of all, the transition to the new Model Y. There was product unavailability, plus customers were waiting for the new model, of course. On top of that, there was Lunar New Year. On top of that, there was obviously winter season depressing overall sales. That's why you saw a rather weak quarter, which is quite normal in China. And then in March, a lot of these things unwound, and that's why we saw this significant uplift. Then in the second quarter, Tesla focused heavily on exports, delivering new Model Ys abroad from a China perspective. And then you can see in the third quarter, there was in the first few weeks a significantly higher sales rate. This tells me that the foreign markets from a China perspective were adequately supplied. And that's why Tesla could already early in the quarter provide more product to local customers, i.e. customers in China. So based on that reasoning, it appears likely that absent a material impact from the now launching new Model Y L, will likely be closer to my beginning of quarter estimate rather than at the implied 17,000 vehicles on average per week. So based on that, my current best estimate would be that we almost certainly exceed my beginning of quarter estimate. But keep in mind, this was before we knew the definitive Q3 launch of the Model Y. But I want to wait one more week before I change my outlook. But at present, I deem it highly likely that I will increase my China estimate by probably at least 15,000 units. The other data point, and I'm not showing in this presentation the data, is the search interest in China. Model Y ranks number 1. Also, the Model 3 ranks quite highly thanks to the Model 3 Plus launch. And that is also always a good advanced indicator for underlying demand. So overall outlook for the rest of the quarter looks good. Not amazing, but good. But then also you have to keep in mind that competition in China is extremely fierce, and Tesla delivering the numbers they do is quite impressive. Now here a quick look at how the year-to-date sales trend compares to the prior years. Obviously, it was hard for Tesla even in this growing market to maintain its sales rate, as a number of competitors literally flooded the market with constantly new vehicle launches. But let's move on and let's look at the overall market. So this chart shows you the last 4 weeks weekly sales for the most important brand in China. Please note BYD's scale is broken down to 33% because otherwise this chart would be hard to read. The arrows show you the latest week over week change. Everyone is up or sideways. Sideways is in gray, except for Tesla. Tesla is down week over week. Everyone is up meaningfully except the NIO brand. You can see here 2.5 to 2.6 is slightly up. It looks like, but it's too small to. It's basically just rounding, tiny improvement here. And then Firefly is also flat. What is up in NIO's case is the Onvo brand. But that was to be expected because the L90, the Onvo brand's second product, just launched. But otherwise, NIO brand lackluster sales trend, and Firefly 2, and you will see more detail on that in a moment. But otherwise, Zeekr, Li Auto, Xiaomi, Xpeng, Aito, Leapmotor, all meaningfully up week on week. The one thing in Tesla's case to maybe pay attention to is it's possible that the switch to Model Y L production may have led to some local demand, so I should say local product unavailability, because you of course can only sell a product if you have the exact matching specification for the local demand, and you cannot just ship vehicles around all the time because that would cause too much cost. So what we might be seeing here is that we have a mismatch problem here, demand and supply. But we probably find out next week when we get latest delivery numbers. So let's move on to a more zoomed out perspective. And that's what you see on this slide. So this shows you again the same brands, so the leading electric vehicle and hybrid electric vehicle brands in China. BYD again is on its own scale, but BYD's sales trend kind of flat for a number of months now. And the metric that you look at is the sum of the last 12 weeks on a rolling basis. For Tesla, you can see there was a significant improvement after the new Model Y launched and as we got out of the typical seasonal weak first quarter. But recent sales trend has been weakening. But I believe this is only temporary until we see Model Y L deliveries reflected in insurance registration numbers. Then, as I predicted recently, Leapmotor, now on this trailing 12 weeks sales metric, has now captured the third spot from from Aito. Aito's sales trend after some negative trend now flatlined a bit, and Leapmotor's trend is still going strong. Xpeng also improving meaningfully, now to a new all-time 12-week sales rate of just under 91,000 vehicles. In contrast, Li Auto's quite negative sales trend continues. They now dropped to just under 86,000 vehicles. And then you have Xiaomi that sees a slight uptick in sales trend to just under 80,000 vehicles. And as I said previously, I think we're about to see this significantly ticking up as there is more U7 product available. I looked at that vehicle and tested it myself a couple of weeks ago, and I think the combination of functionality, design, and software makes it a highly compelling product right now in China, especially at the price point. And then we look at NIO. So here, this black line is NIO Total. That includes the NIO brand that you see here in the black dashed line, the Onvo brand, which you see in this, let's call it orange dashed line, and then the Firefly brand, which you see in this red dashed line. You can see that NIO's sales trend has been, how can I describe it, was ticking up, hit kind of a wall, declined, and recently recovered, and is now slowly getting back to where it was about 2 months ago. And the current trailing 12-week sales rate is at just over 68,000 vehicles, which make NIO currently the 8th largest player in the Chinese market, but please note substantially smaller than the other players. For example, Tesla sells more than twice as many vehicles than NIO. Leap Motor is, as you can see on the sales trend, is growing significantly faster. Sells also roughly 90% more vehicles, which makes NIO actually the smallest player among the main brands, taking into account that Zeekr is part of a large group. And typically what you see in markets where you have this kind of situation, where a player demonstrates it can't out-innovate other players but is smaller, over time they keep losing relevance. So let's before we move on, because this video is not about NIO, but let's have a quick look what happens with NIO. The premium brand NIO has a long-term downward trend. I believe it's because a lot of NIO customers start buying Onvo, the other NIO brand, but that one comes at a much lower price, which is a problem because it's a lower margin product. And then the Firefly, which was meant to be a lower cost entry to the NIO ecosystem, let's call it, has been a failure. Sales have been flat, even though it's a newly launched product. Sales have been flat for several weeks now, as you can see. But that's the end of this quick update. So I think the key takeaway is Tesla's weekly sales not very impressive. However, we should consider that there might be some one-off effects related to the Model Y L launch. And that's why I would not jump to conclusions. Also, the bigger picture for investors is that I think Tesla has long moved on from being viewed as just an automaker. And that's evidenced by the fact that Tesla trades for quite some time at a very high multiple. And this clearly at least shows me that investors have moved on to what Tesla will be in the future, which is a large autonomous ride-hailing provider and other real-world AI product provider via Optimus and products we don't even know about yet. Thank you very much for listening. See you next one. Bye.